All right, everyone, welcome to this version of Beyond the Box. This is where we take a kit that Stampin' Up! Has designed and we kind of go rogue and we do our own thing. And today we're going to be making a very fun, it's a doubles easel card. And we're using the Welcoming Garden kit. So I have passed out to everyone in the room here a little envelope with supplies. So I'm going to show you, you can go ahead and take these out if you want. These are the supplies that you're going to need. There are 3 pieces. This is actually an old cardstock. This is grapefruit grove from a while back. And the example card, if you look at the tutorial or if you look at anything that I'll post, it's actually done in peach pie. I'll show you the difference. The peach pie is definitely lighter in color, but it goes just as well. The grapefruit grove goes just as well with the flowers that we're going to use. So you start off with a piece that is 11 by 8.5, and you're going to cut one piece into 4.5 by 11. And that is the one that you see here. And for everybody in the room, you're going to notice there are 3 score lines. We're going to get to that in just a minute. So there are already 3 score lines, and we'll talk about that in a second. The second piece is the same. It's, in this case, Grapefruit Grove. It is 3 inches by 11, and it's scored at 5.5, 5 3/8, and 5 1/4. We'll get to that in a minute. And then a tiny little piece. This is for decorative purposes. This is 1 1/4 inch high by 4 inches wide. So those are your pieces of cardstock. And we're going to do those in just a minute. Then you have some designer series paper. There are 3 pieces of designer series paper. And if you orient them so the grain is going to your right, that's kind of how you need to look at them. So one of them that we're going to use is 4 inches wide, 3 3/4 high. And these are all written down in the instructions. This one is 3 inches wide by 5, and this one is 4 inches wide by 1 1/4. And then you have 2 last pieces. One is from a card base that is in the kit. I've already cut these out. And this measures 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. And then there's a piece of basic white that measures 3 3/4 by 4. So this is all the paper that you should have. And then we're going to use a couple of elements from the kit. This card does have a little stamping. The other one that we're going to do does not, because there's some elements in the kit that we're going to use for that. So we will be using just a note or whatever stamp you want to use, and then some of the cutouts that come in the kit, but we're going to get to that in a minute. So what we're going to do first, the pieces that you're going to need first are the large piece of the Grapefruit Grove, the almost square piece of designer series paper, and then the Grapefruit Grove that looks sort of corrugated. So if you want to put those to the side, and you can also keep out the piece of designer series paper that's rectangular, 1 1/4 by 4. All right, so this piece, the 4 1/4 by 11 is going to make this part of the card. So we've got an inner card base, which starts here and makes those 2 peaks. And then we've got a skinnier outside card base. So the piece that we're going to use is going to make the 2 peaks. So what you're going to need to do is orient it so you have the 1 1/2 inch score line a 3-inch score line, and a 7-inch score line. So the 1.5-inch score line, the skinny one, you're going to fold back. And go ahead and fold that back and give that a good burnish. And then the 3-inch, so my 1.5 is folded back. The 3-inch you're going to fold forward and give that a good burnish. So we have our front step. That's going to be the front step of the card. We need the back step. So that means that the 7-inch you're going to fold back. So you're going to fold that one back and you're going to burnish that. So this is what you're going to end up with. It's going to look like that. And pretend that the envelope is the table. So it's going to sit like this on the table. Okay? All right. So now what we need to do is we need to add a couple of pieces of decoration. So you sort of have to ignore this front piece, but you can see that we're going to be putting a piece of designer series paper right here, right on that step. And we're going to put the corrugated piece as well. So you're going to sort of open this up and we're going to put one piece of designer series paper, and you should be able to get it in the kind of centered. And let's just make sure everybody knows where that's going. So if you orient the piece like this is your back step, the bigger one. You're going to put it on the front of that. And I'm just going to use, and stop me whenever you need me to stop. I'm using liquid glue. You use whatever you prefer. And you're just going to put that in the center. If you are cutting out designer series paper to design this card, yeah, I like the back of this too. It's really pretty. This is Country Woods, and it carried over from last year. It's on low inventory right now. It is gorgeous paper. So go ahead and just put that right in the back. You might want to get your bone folder and just give it a little bit of a burnish, just so that it's not going to go anywhere. And then this corrugated piece, this is 1.25 by 4. And all I did, and I wanted to save you time, you guys know how to score. All I did is every 1/8 of an inch, I scored all the way down on the 1.25 inch side, just to give it a little bit of interest. Now, you have a choice. You can put this wherever you would like. And I want to make a suggestion. You may want to fold that front step over because you're not going to be able to see everything, right? Because when you have the card finished, you've got that front step, which is going to be blocking some of that back step. So think about where you might want to put it. And I'm going to put mine up a little high. And I'm putting it so that when I attach it, I can't see any of the wood grain on the paper on either side. It's cut just a little teeny bit wider than the wood. So you're going to put it, we look at it like this. You're going to put it on the front of that step. And again, just be a little mindful of where you're going to be able to see that. So I just pressed that front step down. And I'm just going to attach mine. It really does, you don't need to be precise. It's just meant to add a little bit of interest in the back.
Is the bump side up? Yes.
Either way, either way. And I like this because you don't have to measure anything and be exact when you put it on. Just make sure that when you do put it on that you've attached it so that you shouldn't be able to really see the wood on either side from that paper. And if it's not perfectly centered vertically, let it go. It will be fine. Okay? Everybody all right? The last thing that we need to do before we go to more of the design on the second step is you have a piece to go on the front of your blower. Before you put it on, I do suggest when you adhere it, push that step down. And if you can, try to get it so the wood on the top aligns with the wood on the bottom, just so it looks even-ish. And one thing you may or may not have noticed is when I cut the designer series paper, I tried to make the grain visually go in the same direction. So for all of these pieces, it looks like the grain is going from left to right. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to make sure that the wood in the designer series paper is at about the same place. And if these, when I say these, if it's not completely halved, because there is a little bit of an overlap on the way that I scored this paper, don't worry. No one's going to know. You're going to be standing it up. It won't even show at all. So this is where we are. Okay. All right. Let's now build the front step. And that is going to primarily be out of the second piece of in this case, the grapefruit grove. I have to slowly say that, otherwise it just becomes a mess. Grapefruit grove. You're going to notice that I intentionally put some score lines on here. When you make your own, you can decide if you want them or not. And I intentionally started your fold for you so that you wouldn't accidentally fold on one of the other score lines and get angry at me for putting the score lines in. So what you should be able to do is you should be able to literally continue where I folded and give it a good burnish. I did not do that. So you're going to want to give that a nice burnish so that it will really believe that it needs to kind of stay closed.
Scores is for the design.
I did. Yeah, I just scored it for the design so that at the top of the peak in the front, there's a score and it matches the scoring in the back.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously, if you don't like the scoring and you don't want it there, just flip this around and you would have the scoring in the back. It is totally up to you. Before you attach this piece, let me give you a couple of quick tips and then we'll do it together. Where you're going, which is obvious, is you're going to be attaching, this is the piece that has the scores on it. You're going to be attaching that to the front, and you're also going to attach it to the back because you want it to be sturdy. When you put the glue on, where you're going to put the glue, you're going to put glue on here, and you're going to put glue on here. You are not going to put the glue on this piece because you don't know where you're going to be attaching it. If you want to be completely persnickety, you can use your grid paper and you could put your piece down here and I will tell you where it's centered. If you don't care, you can wing it. So if you really, really, really want to have it precise, you're going to put it at 5/8 on each side. If you want to eyeball it, eyeball it. But here's my suggestion. You might want to just watch this real quick. I'm putting that second piece on top. I have laid this piece down. So the back easel, I've just laid down because I want to be able to put some glue here. I'm going to put that down on my grid paper and I'm going to lay this piece just a little bit above on that wood. And the reason I'm doing that is I can see where I need to put the glue. So if I put the glue that way, I'm not going to get, I don't want glue over here. I don't want it so close to the fact that if I push this piece down, it might gush out. So I'm going to put glue, and you don't need a lot, right about here. And I am not going to get it close to over here, and I'm not going to get it super close to the bottom. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, and I am going to be a little persnickety just because I do want to get it kind of as close as I
So
can.
you don't wanna do the front first, then put it on, you wanna do that. Okay.
Yep. So I'm going to just put it right down, and I'm making sure that when I put it down,
Go all the way to the bottom.
I've got it all the way to the bottom. Yep.
Oh,
It goes all the way to the bottom. And what you can do is you can actually just kind of tap it when you've got it going so that it lines up on the bottom. And then theoretically, it's going to be glued to the bottom, and you're going to have about the same amount of wood showing on either side. And don't get super hung up if it's not completely perfect. Okay? And what that's done is it's adhered. There's no glue anywhere I don't want it. There's no glue back here. It's just exactly where I want it to go. Everybody all right? Now, the other side. So let's think through this. The other side. I'm going to pull this piece up. Where I want this to go is when I fold the piece that we made all the way shut. So the first piece we made, I want to just be able to close this over. It's kind of like it's like a mouth, like you're closing everything over. So the way I want to do it is I've turned it over. This is the back, and I need to glue this part down. Well, what I'm going to do is I can see where I should and should not put glue. So it's going to be the same thing. I've got a visual line, and I do want to glue it at the top. I do want to make sure that I get some glue up at the top. And I'm just going to make a rectangle out of the glue. It's on the inside of where my paper is, and it's not going all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm simply going to fold this over and push it down. If it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of my card, in this case, it's not, and that could just be because of where the score is, let it go. No one's going to see it, and it's going to stand up fine. Okay? And then just give that a nice burnish. And where you should be is when you look at it on the side, it's going to look like this. And it's going to stand up. Everybody all right? So a lot of people make step cards, and they go through a lot of pain of cutting partial cuts into paper, measuring them, coming up with double steps or single steps. And for all intent and purpose, this kind of design gives you the same result. And you're just using two pieces of paper. So it's a little bit of a trick, but it works. All right. Everybody all right? Okay. So let's see where we are, and then let's figure out where we're going to go. So here's where we are, and here's the example. The pieces that are left are really decorating the front of that front step, that front piece right here. So we're going to do a couple things. One is, if you take the last piece of the designer series paper that you have, this one measures 5 inches by 3. And here's what I suggest. I suggest that you attach it to that step card. And I'm going to bring this up to the camera because I want you to see. It should go on so that you don't really see that front step, because the step is 3 inches wide and this paper is 3 inches wide. And if you attach it so that the wood looks like it's continuous across the bottom, so you're attaching it so that the line of that wood grain looks like it's just continuous, it will also line up with the score lines on the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach that. And you can see, and There have already been some folks who commented on how pretty the other side of this designer series paper is. Think about it. If you use maybe a coastal cabana or some kind of blue and did the opposite side with this kind of grain, it would be beautiful. It would really be pretty. And you could add all sorts of different pieces to that. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in on, I'm choosing the left side. So I'm lining up the left side of the designer series paper and the left side of my front step. And I'm just making sure as best as I can that the designer series paper looks like it's one continuous line. And I'll give that a little bit of a varnish. All right. So we have used a bunch of pieces that are not in the kit. Now we're going to go to the kit. So one piece, and you can just grab this. We're going to use this in a little bit. This is the cloud, sky, whatever you want to call it, that is going to go in the background of what we're going to put on the front. All I did when I made this is I took, there are cards that are in your kit that are card bases, and the front and the back is this. So I just took card bases and I cut them so that this one is, sorry, 2 3/4 inches wide, a little bit less than the 3 inches here. And it is 4 3/4 inches high. So again, just a little bit less than the wood because I wanted a wooden frame. So I've already done that for you, and you've got plenty left in the kit if you wanted to replicate this. But now we need to find some pieces because we're going to build some things from the kit. So one of the pieces you have looks like this. It has this iron rod gate. You can go, or wrought iron gate, sorry. You can go ahead and punch that out. Just take it out. These other pieces we're not going to use on this card, so that can go back for the moment. And then you're going to find that there is a very ornate, flowery, just gardeny piece that looks like this. So it has the leaves and this beautiful garden scene. Go ahead and punch out the piece that is these multiple leaves, because we will be using that. And we're going to come back to the flowers. Let's do the leaves first, but we will come back and you will be punching out some of the flowers. I suggest you don't quite do that one yet, the flower part, because you're also going to use flowers on the second card. So here's where you're going. The way this is designed is you'll notice at the bottom of these leaves, you've got this strip. And when you're done, the strip hides at the bottom of the gate. So when I got done, I actually just put a little bit of glue and I glued the bottoms together. But you'll notice that I weaved some of the leaves in and out between pieces of the gate to give it just some really cool 3D effects. So this is where you kind of do what you want. I suggest from experience with this that you start at the bottom of the leaves, because what's going to happen is as you go up, you're going to be able to move things a little bit better. So for example, if I wanted to bring this piece over on the right so that it is in front, I'm literally going to take that bunch of leaves and I'm just going to push it through that slat. And then I'm going to play around and do some more finagling. And because I'm working bottom to top, I can move the entire gate around still. And I have the ability just to kind of play and see what's there. Maybe I want to just pop one or two leaves in and see if they'll stay. So you kind of do what you want, and each one of us is going to come up with something that looks different. And just maneuver it. Be gentle, but not so gentle that you don't pull things through. And as you do it, you're going to see places where you can probably manipulate the leaves in ways that you want them to show. You know, occasionally you can just pull one up, or if you want to pull an entire branch, it's totally up to you. But it looks so much more realistic when you have the leaves sort of coming through. The designs that are in the kit are nice. They really are. And I think if you go with what the kit has and make some cards, you will like them. They're pretty, they're layered. They kind of, you know, just have movement in what they're trying to show.
Did you glue that at the bottom?
Yeah. So when you're done,
David.
what I did is, first of all, make sure that you're not going to be able to see that green. You can also cut it if you want to. And just put a little bit of glue. I put it on the green. That way I can make sure that I was controlling. So I flipped my piece over and I pulled up the green and I just put a little line of glue and put that on. But this whole kit just screams layers. It is, the colors are pretty. I I was surprised. I will be honest. I was surprised how much I like this one because I was a little concerned that it was going to be kind of rigid as far as, you know, what to do with it. You may need to hold that piece down right after you glue it. That's fine. Just give it a second to do its thing. And then check the way that you've woven the leaves to make sure that they're still pretty much the way that you want them to be. And you have some time now if you want to finagle anything just to get it to look a little bit more realistic. So that's where mine is. And I've pulled things in and kind of teased them around different areas. Everybody doing all right? So the next thing that we're going to do is where you want to end up. You might want to look here just for a second. Where you want to end up is the cloud piece that you have is going to be flush up. The top of it is going to be flush to the top of the gate. So you kind of want to have that there. And then the sides are going to be hidden by the rails on the left and the right. It's not perfect in the back. That's fine because there's enough room so you should be able to get things aligned. So here's what I suggest is that you put a couple of dots of glue. You do not need to put a lot because we're going to be putting other things on the top that will secure this down. So here's what I would do. I would put a little bit of glue sort of at the top of that green piece that you just put down. You don't need a lot. And then pick out a couple of areas, maybe a dot up at the gate on the top, maybe a leaf or two where there's enough room for you to put some glue, but you don't need a lot. And if you put a lot, you're going to get to the point where you may risk having some glue push through where you don't want it. And then hover over the piece of cloud. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to look at the top of the gate and I'm going to get the top of the gate at the top of the piece of cloud stuff. And then I'm going to make sure that the sides, these two sides, are hidden by the cloud piece. And then I'm going to just let it go. And perfection is not where we're going because this should look kind of organic. Okay, so this is where you're going to end up with that. And then you know where we're going. once this piece is done, and take your time doing it, we're going to end up putting this piece directly onto the front of the front step. Well, let's wait and make sure everybody is at the point of doing that. And I just think, I mean, just look at this for a second. It has so much depth already. It really just, it's very, very gardeny. Okay, when you attach the piece that you just did with the gate and the leaves onto the front, try to focus on the sides. What I mean by that is where we're going is you're going to be looking at the front piece, the one that is 3 inches wide. And if you look at the designer series paper that is on that front piece, you're going to get a teeny bit of framing all the way around. So you're trying to center that piece right on the top. And my suggestion on this one is that when you do that, don't use a lot of glue. Don't put it super close to the edge and do kind of a rectangle. So just a rectangle in the middle. Because again, we're just trying to attach it. I don't know if you can see that. So kind of like that. And we're going to go right in the middle. And I'm going to go left. So I'm tilting the piece up with my right fingers. I'm going left to get it kind of centered. And because I'm using liquid glue, I can move things around a tad. And there I've got it. Okay. So everybody doing all right as far as getting that together? So the pieces we have left are a couple of things. We have a sentiment that we're going to put together. We have some flowers that we're going to add to the top. We've got a ladybug and we've also got a hexagon. And I've got the ladybug and the hexagons and I will pass those around in just a minute. But I'm going to do the sentiment first. And the reason is I want to not put, I want to be able to put the flowers where I want them to go. And if I put the flowers down first, I may not be able to put my sentiment where I want it to go. So if you grab the stamp set that comes with the kit, and it's very nice. It has some really nice sentiments. You've got just a note, thanks, and thinking of you. You do what you want to on here. And you're going to find in the kit, there's another piece that looks like this. You have options of the sentiment that you put on your card. You can do whatever you would like. The thanks is probably going to fit on this label better because it's a little bit taller. The just a note is the one that I did, and it's going to fit on this label a little better. And then you have long strips that if you wanted to do thinking of you, you can. And the ink that is in the kit is crumb cake, which I like. It's nice and neutral. So choose whatever sentiment you would like. You've also got an acrylic block. And if you've got your grid paper, here's a tip. If you put your stamp down so that you can get it off your finger, so that it's on the grid paper and it's kind of straight, and the more I try, it's not working, you can get it onto your acrylic block fairly straight as well. I'm going to copy what I did, so I'm going to go ahead and use just a note. Your grid paper is there for you to use as scratch paper. So if you want to stamp up your, or ink up your stamp and then give it a shot before you actually stamp it, go for it. You do whatever you would like. And then what I did on the sample card, which I'll bring back in, when I got the sentiment done, I used some of the mini dimensionals, which are also in the kit. And I put a few dimensionals behind. I put one in the middle, one on either end, and I added it to the front of the gate. I'm trying more and more.
You could see in that, and, I was using that too that big.
There's also a cleaner on the table right by the scissors, that purple pad, if you want to wipe off your stamp at any point, or you can also just stamp it off if you want to do that. So I did the same. I'm going to come back in and put my dimensionals on. I really like these mini dimensionals. They're super convenient. So one in the middle, one on either side. Let me get that on the envelope. You'll be able to see it better. And then I'll put that sentiment on the gate. And you can put this wherever you want. I just thought it looked like it would probably, if it were a real one, it would go on that middle. And if you have leaves that you popped up and you can continue to hold them up while you're putting the sentiment on, they're going to look like they're in front of that sentiment. So this leaf that I pulled up, I purposely pulled that again.
Sure.
Yeah, I love these. Okay, so now I'm going to make a suggestion and you can do what you want, but I'm going to pop out the flowers that I used on this card. I am not yet going to pop out the flowers I used on the second card because we are going to be putting some on the second card as well. So the ones that I used, and you do what you want, but I'm just giving you an example and I'm showing you where I got them from. I used this orange. I used the double pink one, a single pink one. So these three. I used another one of the single orange. And then I used two of the triple orange. It may seem like a lot. The other card starts with a lot of flowers. So these pieces that are remaining just give you depth. So I left one of the triple orange, one of the single orange, and one of the single pink. You do what you would like. And then to attach these, the way I did it, and again, there are multiple ways, I just put a mini dimensional, for example, behind on this triple flower on one, maybe two of the flowers. And then I found a place where I wanted it to go. So if I put it here as an example, I can tuck one of the flowers underneath a leaf and stick it down. And it just gives some really, really nice dimension. And the nice thing about the dimensionals is when you're putting them on, you're not only holding the flowers down, you're actually holding down the leaves because we're putting them on top of the leaves. So that's another way that the front is just sort of coming together. And you do it however you want. And then the last thing we're going to do, and I'll get these out in just a second, everybody will have an opportunity to put a ladybug in one of the faux brass pentagons. You can tell I'm pretty much mimicking exactly what I did. And these colors just
Aren't they pretty?
pop.
I love this kid. Pretty. Nice and bright.
It really is. I'm just tucking one over here on the edge. This kit at the moment is not available because it has been incredibly popular. And that one, this little flower, I'm going to sort of go in and behind and in front, just for something a little different. And I've got one more. When you put this in an envelope, and it will fit, I really recommend that you use a piece of copy paper and that you just cut it in quarters. So it would be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and put that piece on top and then slide it in your envelope. Because there are going to be little pieces that could catch if someone pulled the card out a little too quickly.
Hoping to find them.
Exactly. These, and don't be afraid, I have more. There aren't just 4. I've got more of these. These are the little ladybug epoxy embellishments, and they are going like mad. Every time they're back in stock, they disappear quickly. They're really nice. They're flat. They're very colorful. And I'm just going to pick a spot where he or she looks like planted on a leaf. So I just did that, and I'll pass these around in just a minute. And then these are nice too. They are called faux bronze pentagons. They are a little heavy, but they work really well just to put something in the middle. I thought the middle of the gate right here where that hole is, it just needed something. And these fit perfectly. So I'm going to put that right in the middle right there. And it looks intentional. Now, the one remaining piece we purposely did not attach, and I'm going to tell you why. The remaining piece is a piece of basic white. This is meant to go on the inside, and it will end up going in the back. My suggestion is that rather than holding the card open while you write your message, that you write your message on the piece of white paper first, and you actually just glue it in when you're ready to send it. Because that way you're not going to be putting a lot of force in keeping that open. And you really want to just make sure that this card believes it needs to fold down. But you do have a piece of white. So when you decide what it is that you're going to send as a message, you can write that and then attach that on the inside. And there we have it. And if you do find that when you've been, adding and changing things and just making it final, that the card needs a little reminder that it really does need to stand, just go back and give it a little bit more of a burnish and it will stand for you. Okay. So the embellishments that I'm going to hand around, if everyone would take a larger one of the faux bronze, there are smaller pieces and larger. The larger is going to fit over that hole in the gate. And then I'm also going to pass around the ladybugs. In addition to the ladybugs, these embellishments have little gems that look like water drops. They're big ones and small ones, and they're absolutely adorable. So you can grab a ladybug and also a faux bronze pentagon. All right, so we're going to stop the recording on this card, and we're going to get reorganized and come back and do the second. So you will find that separately, but we will be back shortly.